We're here at the Green Light Festival, taking place in the Queen's Building at De Montfort University. It's absolutely packed. Been a fantastic turnout. Lots of live talks and people giving presentations. Live music you can hear going on in the background. Lots of great smelling food, lots of workshops. And I'm here with Andy Salkeld, the Leicester City Council cycling coordinator. Good afternoon, Andy. How are you?
Hi, John. I'm good, thanks.
Good. What is it you want to talk to us about today?
Well, it's a presentation that I was planning to give today. Unfortunately, I got the timings wrong. My fault. And this is I'm going to talk to you about the presentation, just to prove to people that I had done it, and to share a bit of information with them, because I think it's a really it's an important issue, and hopefully something that we can have a debate about over the coming months and year here in Leicester.
Okay, so what was it actually called?
It was called Peak Car and Building a Cycling Culture.
And what was the main thrust of your presentation?
It's a threefold thrust, really. The first part of it was to explain some ideas and theory about the idea that car use in the UK may well have peaked, certainly in some cities and certainly in general. To give a context to Leicester, some of the challenges that we've got here in the city, and then to talk about cycling culture, and in particular a cycling cultures conference that we've got on the 5th and 6th of June here in the city.
Okay, so fire off with the first part.
Okay, the brief part of it, first part of it. Peak Car. There's a guy called Phil Goodwin, who's the director or the lead of University of West England, talking in Transport Extra earlier in the last year around the idea and the theory of Peak Car. A couple of little graphs which you might be able to see, which really, in brief, the principle or the hypothesis of his work is rail use peaked early in the 20th century. Bus use peaked in the middle of the 20th century. Is there any reason for us to believe that the idea that we'll have relentless and ongoing, unremitting kind of growth in car use will not follow the same kind of line and will also peak? And then looking at evidence, trying to gather evidence around it, to find out whether that is whether there's any truth to the matter. In short, he's basically put out the feelers amongst other academic researchers, and he highlights 5 different pieces of research which demonstrate that the National Travel Survey's findings last year in 2010, which indicated that on the whole there was a 1 to 2% reduction in general car use and trips. That is also supported by evidence from cities like London, Edinburgh, Birmingham, reports like the Sustainable Towns reports, where there's been a lot of work into behavioural change around car use, trying to get people to shift to more sustainable forms of transport, walking, cycling, public transport. Bringing them together, a little bit of research by Carmen Haas-Clough, who's a researcher living in Brighton, looking at the impact of tram use in some of the European cities. I'm basically drawing together kind of examples to say and demonstrate that not only does there appear to have been a stalling in the predicted growth of car use in the UK, but in some locations there's been a downward trend. In the case of London, since 1992, it is reckoned there's been a significant reduction in personalised car travel and a shift to public transport. Moving on to the context for a city like Leicester, and I'll show you some slides, some examples. The intention was to kind of just raise awareness with people about the kind of changes that have taken place in Leicester in the last 2 or 3 years, and some of the impact of those changes. These photographs illustrate the city centre pedestrian zone and the move away from street space, which was previously 80% given over to car use, and now is 100% given over to people, whether on foot, on bike, pushchairs, wheelchairs. People arriving at the city centre in different ways, and backing that up with local transport plan information in Leicester, which illustrates, as with London, that there does seem to have been a peak in personalised travel and congestion in the city and car travel in the city from around 2007. So for the last 3 or 4 years, and before the economic collapse, car use did seem to be on a downwards trend. The importance of that, and there are some other slides which I will make available to everyone online, the importance of that is when we come to think about how we're going to invest in the transport access infrastructure of the city over the next 15 years of the local transport plan, it raises a really big question, which is, should we be investing and planning to invest in unremitting car growth for the next 15 years? Or should we be thinking about looking into examples of actually constraining that car growth and actually believing that we can deliver some of the sustainable transport objectives that we've got the policies for, but to this point have not necessarily had the political will or the technical support to actually say it's going to happen and actually work towards it happening. That gives the Leicester context, so peak car on the whole, Leicester context, and then I was going to talk about the Building Cycling Cultures Conference, because in a city like Leicester, whether we have unremitting car growth or we have unremitting shifts to other forms of transport, walking, cycling, public transport, some of the challenges are the same. Questions of literacy, employment, poverty, social inclusion, housing growth and the growth of the population, and how do we cater for the citizens of the city. On the 4th and 5th of June this year, there'll be at least 200 delegates from all over the UK and some from North America coming to Leicester to talk about some research projects that we've been involved in, the Understanding Walking and Cycling research project led by Lancaster University, and also the Cycling Cultures Conference led by the University of East London. Alongside the bike projects that we've got here in the city, all the bike cycling projects, Cycle Magic, Bikes for All, Future Cycles, our local bike project partners like Sustrans Biking Project, the Cycle Champions Project, British Cycling's Development Project, the Sky Rides, the work that we do with Citizens Eye and the Wave Media teams. We're going to be talking about the idea of building an inclusive, proactive, growing cycling culture. And trying to pick up some of the lessons that we can learn from the other cities that are involved in those research projects, who will be bringing their information and their ideas and their activists to the city, and thinking about ideas of moving forward in the city to make Leicester a really 21st century city that is people-friendly, and a people-friendly city will be cycling-friendly, and just sharing ideas and kind of kicking those ideas around. That's what I was planning to bring to the conference today, to initiate that debate.
Can I just ask you about the Building Cycling Cultures Conference? I mean, what sort of impact does it have on a city and its kind of cycling culture to be able to host a sort of an international standard event like this in order to get people to come together and share information?
Yeah, well, it's fantastic to be able to bring kind of 200 kind of leading activists, or whether from government, third sector, or commercial market, together in Leicester. And an interest to come together to Leicester to share that. So that's a really good sign. 200 people come for the weekend. We're going to be having a big festival. Lots of films, lots of music, lots of social media work developing around that to record everyone's stories. One of the great things for me, I'm really looking forward to seeing the likes of John Orcutt and Karen Overton, who are coming over from New York specifically to speak at the conference. John is the Senior Policy Advisor for the Department of Transport for the Mayor Bloomberg in New York, and they're doing some really fantastic, innovative work as a city authority to actually change the nature of kind of travel around Manhattan and the other 5 boroughs of the city, and that's really important for us that we're sharing that kind of top-down kind of information. Karen Overton, in my opinion, is the leading kind of bike activist in New York and probably in North America. She's been running the Recycle a Bicycle project. Well, she founded the Recycle a Bicycle project 15-20 years ago. Lectures on social enterprise development for the League of American Bicyclists, and has just participated and helped run the first national youth bike summit for North America, which was attended by Jeanette Sadiq Khan, who is the Transport Commissioner for the States. For New York. So it's really important that we're getting people of that calibre to come over, and equally sharing the experience of people on the ground in Leicester